Imagine a weapon so powerful it can kill nearly everyone inside a fortified building or deep inside a cave without causing significant damage to the exterior. It sounds like science fiction, but it's a real and deeply feared technology known as thermobaric weapons. These munitions are considered one of the most brutal forms of conventional explosives ever created. They can reach people hiding behind corners, inside enclosed structures, trenches, tunnels, and caves, producing a prolonged shockwave and extreme heat that makes survival inside the target zone almost impossible. And if that already sounds catastrophic, some even claim to possess thermobaric bombs as powerful as tactical nuclear weapons, at least in propaganda. At first glance, the mechanism behind these weapons may seem complex, but the principle is simple and ingenious. Traditional explosives rely on chemical compounds that carry their own oxygen, limiting the blast power to the amount contained in the warhead. Thermobaric weapons revolutionized this concept by using oxygen from the surrounding air to generate a much larger explosion than conventional explosives can achieve. It's like turning the air itself into fuel. To do that, every thermobaric weapon must produce two distinct explosions. The first disperses a cloud of highly flammable fuel, a fine powder, metallic aerosol, or solid high-energy compound similar to those used in rocket engines. The second explosion ignites this cloud once it has mixed with the air, creating a massive fireball and a prolonged shockwave. This wave violently consumes the oxygen in the environment, producing a devastating suction effect, the infamous vacuum. The impact is so intense that it ruptures internal organs, burns the lungs, and shatters bones without relying on metal fragments. The explosion can also reach compartments normally protected against traditional explosives, making underground shelters practically useless against this type of weapon. These characteristics make thermobaric weapons extremely controversial. They are frequently denounced by humanitarian organizations, as victims often die from suffocation or burns with virtually no chance of survival. And although no international treaty explicitly bans them, many experts argue they should be classified as weapons of indiscriminate destruction. With that in mind, the question arises, how many countries actually possess this kind of armament? The answer is surprising. Today, more than 20 countries have some form of thermobaric technology, including the United States, Russia, China, India, South Korea, Iran, Turkey, and several NATO members in Europe. However, few have invested in this category as heavily as Russia and the United States. The United States uses thermobaric weapons carefully, generally in special operations. Many have been adapted to existing platforms, such as thermobaric versions of the Hellfire missile and warheads for portable launchers. The most famous, the BLU-118, was specifically designed to destroy cave networks used by terrorist groups. Tests showed that in confined environments, the BLU-118 produces pressure levels equivalent to small nuclear weapons in enclosed spaces without radiation. Of course, it was first used in 2002 during operations against Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, completely destroying underground complexes once considered unbreakable. Risk, however, U.S. military doctrine prioritizes precision munitions. For that reason, despite having several thermobaric weapons, their use is highly restricted and requires approval from the highest levels of military command. Russia takes the opposite approach. Since Soviet times, Thermobaric weapons have been a central part of the Russian doctrine of area annihilation. The best-known system is the TOS-1, a launcher mounted on a T-72 tank capable of firing 24 thermobaric rockets within seconds. A single rocket is devastating on its own, but when fired in salvos, TOS-1 launchers can turn square kilometers into uninhabitable zones due to the pressure and heat. The TOS-1 and its modernized version, the TOS-1A, have been exported to various countries and used in wars in the Middle East, especially in Iraq and Syria. Russia also developed the RPO-HMAL, a portable launcher widely used by infantry troops. Comparable to a heavy artillery shell, the Shmail is lethal in urban environments, capable of clearing entire buildings with a single shot. Another commonly used weapon is the ODAB-500 aerial bomb, designed to be dropped by attack aircraft. It is particularly feared because it can penetrate underground shelters, rendering many civilian refuge points useless during bombings. Ukraine also employs this type of weaponry. RGT-27S grenades, dropped from drones, have shown devastating effects against Russian armored vehicles and positions. This exemplifies how modern warfare has miniaturized what were once large systems into weapons that now fit in the palm of a hand yet still cause massive destruction. The history of these weapons is also surrounded by myths. Some believe Nazi Germany experimented with thermobarics during World War II, but there is no concrete evidence. The first real, documented development came from the United States with the CBU-55, used in Vietnam. The Soviet Union only began its projects in the late 1970s and quickly surpassed the West in production volume and variety. This Soviet advancement had a clear purpose: compensating for the lack of highly trained troops. The idea was simple and brutal: destroy enemy positions with overwhelming force, leaving infantry with only the task of clearing what remained. This doctrine was applied ruthlessly in Chechnya, where entire cities were devastated by thermobaric rocket salvos. And then we arrive at the greatest symbol of Russian military propaganda, the so-called father of all bombs, FOAB. Moscow claims this experimental weapon has an explosive yield equivalent to 44 tons of TNT, 4 times greater than the American MOAB. According to the Russian government, this bomb uses a secret composition of metallic nanoparticles that would drastically boost its energy output. The problem is that nearly everything about this claim is questionable. The only test released shows footage that appears edited with suspicious cuts, inconsistent shadows, and an impact that does not match what a weapon of such power would produce. Furthermore, there has never been a second test, no technical report, no independent confirmation, and most importantly, no use in combat. Considering the current conflict scenario, if this weapon truly existed and were functional, it would have been used without hesitation. For now, everything indicates the FOAB is nothing more than propaganda. Russian attempt to intimidate adversaries and maintain the image of superior military power